In this video, we're going to dive into the general settings within Zoho CRM. So let's take a look at this first pane here for our general settings under personal settings. A lot of this is pretty straightforward, basic demographic information that you want to capture about your user. In this particular section, you're going to fill out things like basic contact information, first name, last name, email, their role, which really governs what data they can see in the system, their profile, which governs what permissions they have in the system, and then things like their alias, phone number, mobile website, fax, etc. Now, these fields can be used to pull into dynamic signatures. So it is important that all of your users fill this out accurately, because we can include those in dynamic signatures and things like email templates or mail merge functionality. Now, address information may not be as important for some folks, but again, if you're going to be pulling that into mail merge templates, it can certainly be useful. This may also have implications in some of the advanced round robining functionality, and we'll certainly touch on that in a later video to discuss how availability and specific information about a user can be leveraged in certain assignment rules and task allocations within the system. Now, when it comes to locale information, specifically the time zone, this actually is quite important, and it really has implications when you get into reporting and API integrations with other systems. So please make sure that the time zone is set accurately, and pay attention to things like server times when you're doing API integrations or posting data from one system to another, and those servers are in different locations. That can have implications over timing of how quickly a sales rep responds to a lead, for example, or getting into some implications if you have records being submitted on different dates, but they're actually in the same date because one server's before midnight and the other's after midnight. So keep that in mind so you don't get into situations where you are creating data in the future or the past, etc. Now, at times you may need to create some custom fields for a user, and in order to do that, you can go into the settings icon over here, and if we go under modules and fields, on the left hand side here you can click on users, click the edit icon again, and you'll see this manage fields. I know it's a little bit of a roundabout way to get there. Sorry that is buried a little bit, but this will allow you to add some custom fields to a user profile, or remove the fields that aren't pertinent by just clicking and dragging to the unused area, or just removing it over here. Once again, these fields can be leveraged in certain automation functions, assignment rules. So if you need to add things like skill group or expertise, you can certainly add those custom fields here that could be leveraged later on. So let's dive into our company settings now. And for company settings, similar thing, we're going to fill out basic company demographic information, the website. We can look at, again, the time zone for the organization. Once again, very important when it comes to automations and integrations with other systems. The fiscal year, this is quite important to set up when you are going to leverage features like the forecasting capabilities within the CRM. Take a look at the help article that gives a really good explanation of how you can set up your fiscal year and how that rolls up through the forecasting functionality. We'll be doing a separate video on forecasting, so we can certainly take a deeper dive in that tutorial. When it comes to business hours and holidays, there's actually a hidden feature in Zoho's workflow rules that you must define business hours and holiday schedules within the company settings in order to activate some workflow rules that have time-based actions based off of business hours. So please take the time to set this up appropriately, because it may have implications in what other automations and features you have access to throughout the system. Within the business hours, you can set universal rules or create specific availability based on certain days. Zoho recently added shift hours, which is a pretty slick feature if you are an organization that operates across multiple time zones or globally, and you can assign users to different shifts, which again has implications in some of the assignment rules that you can automate within the system. Holiday schedules, fairly straightforward. You can go ahead and populate your holiday schedule list, and if you elect the shift hours, you can choose which holidays are relevant for each shift. Multicurrency, again, I would defer you to read the help article. If you're an organization that operates globally across multiple currencies and actually sells in multiple currencies, then likely we're going to need to dive into some deeper conversations around your accounting systems, but Zoho does offer support for multi-currency to help you transact globally. On the hierarchy preference, there are a couple different ways that you can really set up how users have access to different data in Zoho. The first is based off of a role hierarchy. Now, a role hierarchy is really tied to a particular position, not to an individual that you may be reporting to. The reporting hierarchy is just that, to an individual. And this help article has a nice overview of what that means. So role, you can see here that all sales managers report up through the VP of sales, etc. When it comes to an individual, it's really going to be that John is Mark's report direct manager, therefore John can see all of Mark's records. However, if there were another employee over here that wasn't Mark's direct supervisor, then that person may not be able to see Mark's data under this particular structure. So when it comes to a lot of the reporting hierarchies and data rules, this can get quite complex because there are really quite a few ways that data can be shared within the CRM. You have your standard role-based hierarchy, and that really is done off of a hierarchical tree. You have territory management that can either complement or overwrite some of the role-based hierarchy, where certain records can be shared within a territory group. Now, territory management only applies to certain modules, so you may have some limitations there. And then, of course, you have just general data sharing rules, which can overrule any standard data sharing permissions within the system. We'll be doing a whole video tutorial on data sharing and hierarchies, territory management, so I won't get any further here, but just be aware that you can start to think about your data structures and data sharing in terms of roles, people, or if you want to really get specific by module, we can just leverage the data sharing rules. So that's going to take us through some of our standard personal and company settings and some of the implications that we have. Please take the time to fill all of this out appropriately, because once again, it's going to have implications down the road when we get into lead automation and assignment rules, as well as some of the workflow rules in scheduling some schedule-based actions based off of business hours and skipping holidays. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you on the next video.